committee to order. Denise, you want to go ahead and open up the town council meeting? You're muted.
Mute, Denise.
Sorry, it was because of the dog. I'd like to open the Tuesday, February 8th meeting of the Tiverton Town Council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Joan, would you like to do a roll call, please? Come over here.
Counselor Edwards,
Here.
Counselor Janik,
Here.
Counselor Burke,
Here.
Counselor Vieira,
Here.
Counselor DiMederos,
Here.
Counselor Cook,
Here.
Council
Present.
Perry. Okay.
Council
All right,
Perry
so-
present.
Yeah, we forgot Joe.
sorry, Joe.
I'm used to it.
Joe, I'm sorry, the screen's so full, it's easy to lose you. All right, so both of our agenda items are the same. It's discussion and review of the proposed Tiverton School Department 5-year capital plan as proposed to be submitted to Rhode Island Department of Education for approval and potential reimbursement, discussion of ride procedures and regulatory requirements and submission deadlines, possible vote to approve same. Jerry, I'm going to have you lead this.
Okay. So the first thing I want to do is actually ask for a motion from someone in the school committee to add to the submission of the town council for the February 15th submission, the allocated amount for the field lights that I'm looking for a number and I cannot.
Larkin, I'll make the motion to approve adding $265,261 for the field lights to the Ride Phase 2 submission due February 15th.
Jerry,
Yeah.
I just want to tell you that the town council did not get back up to this. So I think you need to explain this right from the beginning. Right?
Yeah, I was going to do that
Okay.
next. So.
Okay,
So Diane's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll
Yes.
make a second for discussion.
Okay, so any discussion from the school committee, Elaine?
No,
Mike?
I don't think so. I think this is something we all know that it's been approved and this should be the final stage.
Okay, Diane?
No, I understand what it is we're doing.
Okay, and I don't have any comments. I'm gonna ask for a vote. Diane?
Yes,
Mike?
Yes.
Elaine? Elaine?
I said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I vote yes, so the motion passes 4-0. So what I would like to do is actually give a relatively high-level overview of the process that we're in right now about these items and sort of some of the things that have changed since we last did this or how we've done this previously with some of the school capital improvements in years past, and sort of then where we are now with this submission due for February 15th, and then what we hope we'll be doing collaboratively over the next several months. So, so one thing that's important to understand is that per RIDE guidelines, we need to have a 5-year plan on file with them in order to achieve what is generally referred to as housing aid from the Rhode Island Department of Education in order to offset the costs to the town. And Tiverton's percentage right now stands at 35%. That's about average for most of the state. There are some communities that get much higher percentages. We won't really go into that. And then there are incentives that are related to health and safety and some other things that can bring your percentage up to 50%. But in order to get this reimbursement, you have to have a plan submitted to Rhode, and it has to be approved by them. And then you have that 5-year period in order to implement those things. In 2018, there were a lot of things that were changed, or at least as my experience and understanding goes. And one of them was that the submissions can only occur twice a year, on February 15th and September 15th. Before that, they were sort of rolling. You could submit them whenever you had gotten everything completed. The second is that when you submit a given plan, you have to have some detail as to how the financing of the plans would proceed. And also, if you decide that you wanted to go to bond for the financing, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself there. So before I go to that, so the whole plan submission goes in 4 phases. The first phase is a letter of intent. And what that is a submission to Rhode that says, school committee is planning on developing a plan. We've notified the appropriate, and they actually just call it a community representative. And I think that's because the form of government differs between different communities in the state. But in Tiverton, you would expect it to either be the president of the town council or the town administrator with, sort of knowledge of the council. That so it would be signed by the chairman of the school committee, the appropriate community person, and then the superintendent of schools. The letter of intent really just puts Rhode on notice that we are going to go through this process. It, as far as I can understand it, doesn't have any binding issues associated with it. Then what's supposed to happen is that you're supposed to work through over several months kind of what the capital plan should look like. And that should be a collaboration between the town and the school department and the community as a whole. Usually with the participation of an agent, an architect, potentially even an engineering firm, and either a sitting building committee or one that has been appointed, or at some point you will eventually then appoint a building committee. That's just stage 1. Stage 2 is sort of where the rubber hits the road, and that is what happens when you go through this process of several months of collaboration between the various entities to come up with the plan. And the plan then can be submitted, the stage 2 plan can be submitted again in either February or September. I think I talked about the reimbursement percentages, but the other things that are very important to understand about that is that you need to specify how you will finance these projects. You can say we're going to finance them all out of capital reserves, or sort of one way or another from cash, from funds that the town has on hand, or you can choose to bond some of the issues or some of the projects. If you choose bonding, then you do need to have the bonding done within 6 months, and that requires a separate decision on the part of the town council, as well as enabling legislation. And then it goes before the voters, and the voters vote up or down. The other thing that's important to understand is that if 50% or more of the plans that are submitted in that 5-year capital are not completed within that 5-year period, then you run some risk of losing state housing aid. I'm not sure that that's actually ever been invoked yet within a community, and I think that's something that's new from the 2018 regulations, but it does mean that this town is now taken on a commitment in order to do whatever percentage of plans they want to do. The other thing is that you can submit plans sequentially through the time. So you can submit a plan on September 15th, and then you can submit an additional or a new plan on February 15th, and then the following September 15th, presumably. Once the plan is submitted and approved by Rhode, again, that triggers two things. One is that you are required to do some amount of the work over the next 5 years. The second is that if you choose to do bonding, then the bond has to go before the voters within that 6-month period. An interesting question that I think you'd have to have an attorney weigh in on is what happens if you do that, but then the voters reject the bond. It sort of is, I don't know what the answer to that question is. Another important thing to understand is that the town is required to, there are two other sort of very important related documents or areas of concern, or I'm not sure exactly what you would call them, but one is that the school building authority at Rhode has a calculation based on the square footage and the age, as well as what work has been done on buildings, and will give you a cost estimate of where they think you need, how much money you need to spend to keep the buildings intact. The second is that every year we are required to submit to Rhode what efforts we are making in order to maintain the buildings. It's sort of very analogous in my mind to maintenance of effort. So, and the reason why they want this done is because they're, first of all, not going to approve plans which are going to, be eligible for reimbursement if a municipality has done nothing for 10 or 20 or 30 years. And they're saying, well, we're not going to submit, $100 million high school and get a certain amount of percentage. And it's because we never took care of the one that we had. Maybe that, I'm not sure that that's true of any particular community, but I'm just saying that we have to submit to Rhode every year kind of what we are doing in terms of maintaining the buildings. And there's a lot of things that go into that. It's just not capital improvements. It's all kinds of other, sort of routine maintenance stuff. And so that's, sort of an important thing to understand about where the town's how the town's obligations are viewed by the state and by the Department of Education, and how going through with this plan creates certain obligations when we get to certain points. So again, it's a stage 2 application that actually commits the town to doing something, not all of it, but at least 50% of it. And then the stage 3 and 4 are basically the explication of the plan, drawing up, seating a building committee if one doesn't already exist, and there are certain requirements for who are members of the building committee, engaging with contractors, sort of all the other stuff. That's, again, a pretty high level view, and that's how I understand it. And I purposely put it out there as how I understand it, because I want to make sure that I haven't, if my understanding is inaccurate, this is a good time for us to sort of figure that out so that we are not caught off guard by things. So that's kind of where that's how the process works, again, from a very high level. Where are we right now? So over the last several months, we had submitted a letter of intent and been working on a stage 2 plan. The stage, Denise, you want to?
Now,
Maybe
the
I'll stop
letter
here.
of intent, I do have a question about the letter of intent.
Yep.
Because that was for the proposal of 2018 and reimbursement then. Did we actually really submit a letter of intent for this project? And I'd like Mike Marcello to weigh in on this, and Chris Carter, if they have any view sites on this because the letter of intent was for the 2018 projects, what I understand. Mike, Chris? Who wants to go first? Mike? Marcelo?
So I haven't seen the full letter of intent that the town administrator was given a copy of his signature page, but I haven't seen the actual full letter intent, but my understanding is based upon his conversations that was a previous letter of intent for a prior project, but I'm not privy to that yet.
Right, and Chris, that's my understanding too. There wasn't a real letter of intent for this project. Is that correct?
Well, when I signed it, it was my understanding it was to collect housing aid for the projects that we were already completed. As the housing aid comes in every year, it's for the prior year projects. I had no
So you
idea.
signed that in 2020.
Correct, I did. I
So
signed it
that's a
September
long time
2020.
ago, and that wasn't when this project was
Right,
proposed.
It was well before any review had been done by RGB or it looked at any of the schools. So I had no idea that what was going on within the schools was taking place.
Yeah.
That's incorrect. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah.
All right, wait a minute. Who wants to talk?
RGB does.
All right, RGB, what I understand, and I saw it, it was signed in 2020.
That is correct, but that was a letter of intent that kicked off a stage 1 application that was submitted, I believe, in the fall, and we received approval on that stage 1 application to go to a stage 2 in May of 2020.
My concern with this RGB
Yeah.
is that Chris Carter was never told that. He signed it in 2020.
No, I did sign it. I'm not
He
disputing.
did sign it, yes.
Right, but you weren't even at this process yet.
That is the very first initiation of the process.
Okay.
You submit the letter of intent. Part of that now is the stage 1 application. And as Dr. Larkin said, that does not commit you to any funds or projects, but that identifies a need, Rhode calls it, and that moves you to the stage 2 application.
All right, well, I'm being a little skeptical here because I don't think the town administrator understood this. And also, when I was asked to put the stage 2 on my agenda, you also said that didn't commit us to anything. And with discussions with Rhode, I understood it did. If I would have put that on the agenda, then we would have had to put a bond out in 6 months. And I watched the school committee meeting, and you explained it the same way, that there was no commitment, which was absolutely false.
Right. So Denise, the issue here is not so much what was.
No. I want them to answer that, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe we said that. If that's
Yes,
what
you did,
understood.
and I have the recording.
Okay.
You did say that.
The capital improvement plan that we had, I said part of that is like a line of credit. You do have to spend 50% of that. Rhode anticipates you spend 50% of that.
But I want to make it clear, and I watched the school committee meeting. I was originally asked to put on the agenda the stage 2 project, and that included the bond. And it was said very specifically, oh, the town council can do that because there wasn't any major decisions and it wasn't going to be a problem. But then when I looked into it, if we would have approved that, we would have had to do a bond in 6 months.
So Denise,
your
that
advice
is
at that meeting was incorrect.
right.
So
So
that's why I'm a
Denise,
little skeptical to your advice at this meeting. Go ahead, Jerry.
okay. So you are right. That was certainly how. You can certainly say that our understanding of this process has evolved a lot over the last several weeks, and that's why we are having this meeting today to make sure that we are not committing the town to anything that it hasn't already decided to commit itself to through the town council.
Absolutely, and that's why I want to make sure that this is clear, that there's no commitment here, because if I would have put that on the agenda and let that go through, the town would have been saying that we had to do a bond in 6 months when the process was not clear to us whatsoever.
Right. And in attempting to clarify that process, we discovered a lot of things. So I'm not sure that it would have ever gotten to that point. But be that as it may, it didn't. So now we have to get to what I hope is the next point. So where are we right now? So where we are right now is that the town council, I think wisely, we appreciate that, has allocated $2 million of the casino revenue towards capital improvements in the schools, primarily bathrooms and the field lights. Those are the things we're here to discuss tonight. What we can do is make a submission to Rhode on February 15th in order for our capital plan, in order to get those projects reimbursed at between 35 and 50%. It depends on how they end up viewing these things. I think we will certainly get 50% on the bathrooms. I think you arguably will get 50% on the lights, but I do not know. That is not my decision. That is Ryan's decision. So if we submit that plan on February 15th, it will, and it is, if it is approved, then we can proceed with the work that the town council has already allocated the funds for. Therefore, you don't have any concerns about meeting the 50% threshold because you're presumably going to meet the 100% threshold. We don't have any concerns about bonding because we're not going to be bonding anything. That's really what tonight's meeting is about. The school committee has approved the plan to do the sort of the allocated amount of expenditure for the bathrooms and for the lights. 500,000 of that has already been approved by Rhode under an emergency thing that we could get done. So we don't actually need to take that up. But what we need to do tonight is, make sure you guys don't have any questions and are willing to approve submitting the 1 million for the bathrooms and I'm forgetting the number, 290,000 for the lights, so that we can then proceed with the work. The plan, I have no doubts, will be approved in May. We proceed with the work over the summer, and the town will get $1 million, probably, of the $2 million that was allocated back to do whatever the council sees fit to do. So what I might do at this point, if people want to talk, and Denise, if you'll let me be the person to recognize, I'll just raise their hands on the Zoom, or if I see your hand raised on the screen. Are you okay proceeding that way, Denise?
Yeah, I see my counselors already have questions.
Right. All right. So Jay, I think you were first.
Muted.
Jay,
Jay,
you're
you're
muted.
muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's no raise your hand on the bottom of the screen here. However, I raised mine and you saw me. So Jerry, is this going to be a 1 year?
It's in reactions. Sorry, just sort of as a point of order, it's in reactions. If you go down to reactions.
Oh, okay. So is this going to be a 1 year plan submission?
So we actually theoretically have 5 years to do the work. We don't want to wait 5 years because we've waited. Right. It is technically a 5-year submission. We have 5 years to do the work. We have the money. It's been allocated. God knows the bathrooms are 50 years old. Why would you wait 5 years?
Well, let me continue the question. If you do that for 5 years, can you submit any more within that 5-year period?
Yeah. So what we would hope to do over the next several months is work with the council and to make a submission in September for other things. And, that's the discussion that has to occur. What is, the town what does the town want to undertake, recognizing that a stage 2 submission would require the expenditures to be made eventually over those 5 years. So when I talked about, Ride's calculation of what amount of money do they estimate would be needed in order to bring the buildings up to a 21st century standard, it was something in the neighborhood of $45 million. If you built a new building altogether, it'd be well over $100 million. Just let me clear, there's no, I think, thought on, at least on my part or anybody, to do that. If and why would you do that when we'd spent, $15 million on the roofs and the HVAC and other things in the last couple of years at the high school and the middle school? We built an elementary school. I don't know, these are things everybody, I think, is rather well aware of. So $45 million is according to the School Building Authority. In the plan that we were working on over the last several months was about $24 million of work that was anticipated as needed or desirable, depending on how you kind of qualify it and what you think your needs are and what you think your desires are. So Deb Janik.
So I had a lot of the same questions as Jay, but I thought we had done a 5-year plan in the past and a lot of this was included. So I guess I'm just questioning why we're only putting like those $1 million into that plan where we've already approved 2 million. And some of that should be health and safety, like the intercom at the high school and dishwater.
So some of that stuff was not reimbursable, and some of that stuff
is that part of the 500?
Right. So some of it's covered by the $500,000, and so then you come up to about so it's about 1.7 million that we are planning on getting, that we hope to get reimbursement for. We can submit subsequent plans. In discussions with the head of the School Building Authority, his recommendation actually was to submit a plan on February 15th for $4 million. The reasoning for that was that if we were planning on spending about 2 million anyway, we've already allocated, the town council's already allocated that 2 million. You're not going to have any difficulties with meeting the 50% threshold. And then you will have plans submitted to RIDE that would, if you had, some windfall of some sort, and you wanted to proceed with other work, you could, because it had already been approved. What's the downside to that? The downside to that is that if you've already submitted it in one plan, and you're saying you're going to do it under financing through capital, whereas you might want to finance it through bonding in a later plan, that gets a little squishy, I think. I'm not sure that you can actually do that. Yeah. And the sentiment of the school committee was that we only go in this plan, given sort of how some of this discussion has evolved. And I guess I can't emphasize enough how different this plan has been with plans that we have submitted in the past. In terms of, sort of the process. But the school committee really only felt like we could confidently say, okay, we submit $2 million. We know the money's been allocated. We know we can do, we know the work is needed. So it seemed a far surer bet. That was at our meeting on February 2nd, I think.
Yeah, I watched that meeting. And I appreciate that the school committee wants to take time with the building committee, with the superintendent, to put together a list of what is most important.
So, and I'll stipulate, the town, we should have been more engaged with the town council over the last several months. It's again, another thing that I'm not sure that I fully appreciated based on past experience and I just lost my train of thought, but I would encourage everybody to go to, because it's maybe not riveting reading, but it is important reading, particularly as we go through this process, in the future, and we have to go through the process. So there's no kind of opting out, saying, we don't really want to do this because we want to, we've got other pots in the fire. This is something that is actually going to be required by Rhode, and I believe it's actually in the statute, but not. But anyway, if you go to Rhode and you go, and I'd be happy to send the link to Chris or Joan, and they can disseminate it to everybody. But there's a part of the Rhode Island Department of Education that is called the School Building Authority. And all of this information is actually there. And one of the, I would say, less than intuitive aspects of it is the tab that is most educational is one called the necessity for school building. And that sort of just seemed like, well, of course, schools, buildings are necessary. Why, I'm not going to look in that tab. And then I looked in that tab and it had everything that I was really looking for. So at any rate, I'll send the link to.
Yeah, well, Deb, I have the link because I sent it to Jerry, I think.
Yes, you did.
Yes, so I have the link. I can have Joan send it to all of you. Because I
Okay.
do have that link. I've read it twice now.
Yeah,
And it
me
is
too.
more, I get more and more of it as I read it. Jay has his hand up again, but does any other counselor want to talk? Mike, do you have any questions?
No, those that have been asked are the same ones I would have.
Okay, Bill Vieira, any other questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Joe, any questions?
Nope, not at this time. I'm pretty content with what I've been
Good.
hearing.
All right, Donna, any questions?
Nothing right now.
Okay, then I guess we'll address Chris and then Jay. How does that sound, Jerry?
With me.
Works for me.
Chris,
I just have a couple of questions. If this is like a one submission for $2 million, there would be, I guess, and I look at it, it's like 1.95 million, and I know you got $500,000 already done.
Yep.
Because we gave $1.5 million for the bathrooms, another 90-some thousand, or just over 100,000 for kitchen equipment, 25,000 for an intercom system, and some building siding. Comes up to 1.9 million, or 1.957. That at a 45% reimbursement would be about $890,000, right? So what is the school's intent? That would come back to the general fund, or would that then be restricted to go for other capital projects? And would you utilize in a 5-year plan to then go on to do like electrical panels, gym lockers, single pane windows, those kind of things that are structural, but not new programming?
So I think there's a complicated, well, not a complicated, there's a lot of different aspects to answering that question. One is, it is always going back to the general fund. So it's under the control of the town council, not of the school committee. The things that are going to be covered are the 1.5 million for the bathrooms and I don't know why the number's not sticking in my head, but is it 280 for the lights?
290.
290. The 290 for the lights. So that gets you up to about 1.8, and our baseline reimbursement is 35% with incentives. Hopefully that could be applied to both those things. It gets up to 50%. What would we do? That's the part of continuing on through this process. What we should do is submit a letter of intent for a new stage, for a new 5-year plan that would have as its stage 2 deadline, September 15th. And then from February 15th to September 15th, we have a building committee that's meeting. We would hopefully have members of the town council on that building committee. And, you know, we sort of decide what are the priorities within the greater scheme of needed capital projects that we want to include in a stage 2 submission. Perhaps it's $24 million, perhaps it's $30 million, perhaps it's $10 million. The thing is that you are up, you know, there's a carrot and a stick. The stick is that you have to complete 50%. The carrot is that if it's not in that plan, you're not going to get reimbursed unless you make a new submission.
Okay. So I guess my concern was that we could actually leverage the reimbursement to generate like another $1.5 million out of the 2 million. So we could actually fund $3.5 or $6 million.
Right. That is absolutely true, but it goes into the town's bank account, not into the schools.
Okay.
Right. And Jerry, there was discussion during the casino meetings we had that we are going to try to set up a restricted fund where it goes into what we call school committee capital. And that will be the reimbursement. That's a little complicated. Well, lawyer, treasurer, Chris, we all need to work on that right now.
Yeah, that should all be part of the process. Yeah.
Right. And then once we figure out an avenue to do that, then the town council has to vote to do that. But we did talk about it, and it did seem that we did have the majority of the council agree to this, but it's just to set it up will take a little bit.
Correct. I think Mike and Diane had their hands up.
Yeah, Mike, Jay, Diane.
It was just to echo what you just said, Denise, is that I believe we actually put in the motion to direct the administrator, the treasurer, whomever, Amy, whoever else necessary to come up with a way to do that, to set that money into an account that any reimbursement that comes in would go into that and could be benefit the schools again, but they'd have to come back to us for approval on spending that money.
Right. Right. And we will be working on that, and it's on my future agendas. I think Jay, Edward, I kind of ignored you before.
No, it's not a problem. I spoke once. Okay, so I think we can all agree that a lot of this sort of came out of the blue. We had no idea of the scope of what was being asked. I also understand that the school develops their projects. And really the only input that the town council really has into that is we either approve the plan or some portion of the plan. And ultimately, we make a recommendation of what the bond is going to be. So I'm going to make, well, okay, so as part of that, as I understand what RIDE requires, we're supposed to have a school building committee with a minimum of 8 members, and they define who those members will be. As far as I know, well, I understand Joe Perry is on the building committee, but just recently. And
but he's not a town council member.
Right, he's not a town council member as being a part of that. So when did you first start the building committee meetings for this project?
So the regulations are surprisingly vague.
I thought they were pretty clear.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you about my conversation with the person who's the head of the school building authority. And I'd have to call up the website. It doesn't actually specify that the person has to be a member of the town council, and I'm blanking on the terminology. It has to be like, it's a community member or something, or community representative. That's not the term they use, but at any rate, I think it'd be great to have a member of the town council, but it doesn't actually spell it out as a member of the town council. Having said that, the the committee first met on January 12th. They had another meeting today. We are actually going to take up the status of that committee at our meeting tonight. When I asked the school building authority person, is it supposed to be a member, is the committee supposed to be a subcommittee of the school committee? Is it supposed to be a committee of the superintendent? Is it, or what? And his answer was, you can actually have it be either of those two things, or you can even have it answer to the town council. He did not think that there was, his view was you could do whatever you wanted. It wasn't that strictly defined. Past practice in Tiverton has been that the building committee is a committee of the superintendent. So is answerable to the school committee only through the superintendent. I believe the sentiment of the school committee now is that the building committee probably should be actually a subcommittee of the school committee. The other thing that you might run into problems with there of, just making it a committee of the superintendent is the clause in the charter that says every committee and subcommittee and kind of subderivation of any governing entity has to comply with open meetings laws. Now you could make the argument, okay, a committee of the superintendent complies with the open meetings law because it's not governed by the open meetings law. I'm not sure that that's actually the intent of the charter. You'd have to sort of hash it out as a charter violation if you really wanted to get an answer of that. I'm not sure we need to do that. I think it's good to have the meetings posted and sort of comply with the open meetings laws. In the past, that's not been the practice. But having said that, there certainly is no sort of secrecy involved or meetings being held without people being able to just walk in if they wanted to.
Jerry, I have to,
Okay, so.
I do want to intervene a little bit here. As you all know, I was chairman of the school committee when we did 3 projects and bonded 3 projects. At the time, the building committee was answerable to the school committee. I know that since I left, things have changed with your projects, but at that time, they were appointed by the school committee and reported to the school committee.
Okay.
And I remember that from being there.
Okay,
Jay,
so
I'm sorry.
to continue, Jerry, I would, okay, so like I said, the town council gets presented with a 5-year plan on which we have to make some sort of decision. I would highly recommend that since we have to do that, then we also have to have a pretty good idea of what we're approving.
No, that's
Which to me would include, we need to have tours.
no, that's I guess actually what I'm getting at when I say that we should be very there should be a lot of collaboration occurring over the next several months in order to come up with a plan. You shouldn't hear about it the night that it's presented on your agenda for approval. So,
well, one other thing too, just my last thing. So from the time you submit your to be approved 5-year plan to RIDE, is it from that point we have 6 months to
yes,
to say if it's going to go to bond? But if it's in February or even September, there's no way in hell it can be on a November ballot.
No, it'd have to be a special election.
So that is if you choose bonding as your financing mechanism. Once you've said, we're gonna do X amount of work and we're gonna bond Y percentage of it, that triggers a 6 months that the bond has to be before the voters within 6 months. So I'm just going back to the regulations about the building committee, and it says, a representative of the office or body authorized by law to construct buildings in the municipality. And that is, I think that in terms of who, sort of a person sort of from the town council versus, I don't know how you interpret that phrase.
Over here.
I interpret that to be the president of the town council.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Or she could that person could give it to the town administrator to do.
I think it is not, I guess, completely clear to me that that's necessarily means that it has to be someone from the town council. I welcome anyone from the town council being on it. I'm just telling you, it wasn't spelled out in, explicitly that it has to be a member of the town council. Given that the town owns the buildings, it seems, yes, they are the authority, and they have to approve the bonding and hold the bonds, all that stuff. Yeah, I could say that's an argument that it's a member of the town council is that the town council is that authority. The actual construction is undertaken by the school department. I mean, sort of, we usually run the school department usually runs the construction itself. I'm not sure it's worth debating too much. I'm just saying it's not absolutely explicit.
Okay.
Looks like Joe Perry has his hands up.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify something. I had gotten an email that we're looking for volunteers to be on the committee. I volunteered because of being involved in the basketball league for years and the schools allowing us to use the facilities. I felt I owed it to the school department to at least sit in and try and help wherever I could if possible. I didn't do it as a council member. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that.
Okay. And we welcome and appreciate your helping out, Joe. I think Diane was next.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, the school committee does have on its agenda this evening to address the status of the building committee and as well as appoint members of that building committee, of which there are 2 from the town council, including Ms. DiMederos and Mr. Perry. Secondly, I just want to clarify on the numbers that were being tossed around, just for clarity's sake. The ask this evening for the RIDE Phase 2 application is in the amount of $1,328,974, and that includes renovations at the high school for the bathrooms and for the light poles also at the high school, and that is all that is going on that Phase 2 application in February, just so we're all clear on that.
Can I just clarify something? The number is slightly different because we have a little bit of contingency and escalation or soft cost on some of those numbers. So as it stands, just to be transparent, the total capital improvement plan is at $1,347,976.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification, and I do wish we had that in writing. I'll just say, put that right out there. That should have been in all our packages. Secondly, I just also want to clarify that the work that was already approved by the town council from the casino money that has already been completed, i.e. the siding at Ranger, the dishwasher, the intercom system, and all of that, we are not expecting reimbursement on any of that from RIDE. That is not part of the capital submission.
Right.
And well, the $428,000 that was part of the emergency capital submission that was sent in within the last couple of months. That is expected to be reimbursed at the rate of 40%. And I don't see 50% on any of these documents. When I look at the grand total of everything we're talking about here, what I would expect the town to receive in reimbursements would be somewhere in the area of between, I'm going to estimate 750,000. I don't know, Mr. Carter, you mentioned $1.5 million. I don't think it's quite that high for this phase of the project.
That would be if you did over 5 years and you rolled that money that you got for reimbursement. So that 750 that you're talking about, if you use that in year 2 for 750 more in projects, that has a housing reimbursement again, and then the following year, and then the following year. So you leverage those monies to continue on doing projects.
Well, at this point, I'm not going to count any chickens before they hatch, but thank you for clarifying that. And that is all I had to add.
And can I ask you, what's the emergency allocation cover?
$500,000 in bathroom construction.
It's all part of the bathroom thing?
Yep. Mike, I think you had your hand up. Mark?
Thanks. So a couple things. I want to separate out what we need, what you're looking for us from tonight, and then going forward.
Right.
So let me speak to going forward first, because that might be simpler. Going forward, you want to have our collaboration with putting together a future 5-year plan to hopefully be submitted in September. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And my suggestion, and certainly it's not from the council, is and I don't necessarily agree with my colleagues' interpretation of that line, because I was looking at it in Rhode's regulations around membership. But you are allowed to add additional members. So I would ask that you specifically add to your building committee 2 members of the council to be appointed by the council, because with all respect to Joe, as he said, he didn't get on because of his membership in the council. We could decide to appoint him as one of those 2 members, but they weren't appointed by the council, and I think that's important. So that's that future piece. I thought I was pretty clear until this last conversation about what you need from a dollar perspective from us tonight. So, because I'm looking at a letter from the superintendent dated February 1st, and it lists at the top, okay, I see the no ride reimbursement, okay. But it lists at the top the things that Diane had just gone through, the dishwasher, et cetera. And then it's underneath, and it totals that out. To the right on that, and if it helps, I can share this, if that's helpful to folks. I can put it on the screen if folks want that. To the right, it says no ride reimbursement. Then right below that, projects to be completed include the light poles, tennis court repairs, additional middle school bathrooms, I guess they are, or just middle school bathrooms, high school bathrooms. Those total out, it looks like no, that's just the high school bathroom. So I'm not quite sure what the total is. That might be that 1,347 amount that was discussed, but it looks like it's more than that. And then on the right-hand side, it shows the light poles and the tennis courts are not reimbursable, but the bathrooms in the high school and the middle school are. So in order to get to a motion, it's just important for us to really know clearly what you need.
So I think, so just to clarify that, when we had our meeting, and that's why I needed that motion at the very beginning of this one, when we had our meeting on the 2nd, we did not think that the light poles would be reimbursed. We went back to Rhode, and they said, and this is all always contingent on Rhode's approval.
Right.
They seem to think that maybe they were reimbursable. So that's why the light poles are added. And what we need in the form of a motion is for the town council to approve submission of the capital, the stage 2 plan with a total funding of $1,347,000, and the other, the rest of it, and that the financing mechanism is going to be through allocation of casino funding, casino funds, casino revenue.
But what specifically does that 1347976 go to?
Bathrooms and light poles.
So whenever, Madam President, you are ready for a motion, I can share that because I know our colleagues. have
Sorry, I
another
just want to clarify so there's no miscommunication. There's 2 line items on the capital improvement plan. It includes at the high school, the light poles for the fields, and then the bathroom, locker room, shower areas are around the gym and some supporting areas. Those are, it's not bathrooms in the other portions of the school.
Oh, it was approved.
It's the bathrooms in the original locker rooms, and part of that is the locker room renovation.
So that's a 1,063,000 and change.
Correct.
1,347,000. No, it's 1,347,976.
No. The high school bathrooms are $1,063,713. Correct?
Right.
No, the line item right now, there's 2 line items. It's the high school locker room, shower, toilet rooms, 1,031,918. The light poles at the athletic fields are 316,058 for a total request of 1,347,976.
So again, I'm looking at what the superintendent provided. And it says high school bathrooms. It doesn't differentiate where they are.
That's correct. It does not. Yeah, sorry.
It says 106,163. So you're saying that number should be 103,1918.
Yes.
Okay. And it says on this document, replacing the light poles is 265,261. You're saying that has increased to 316,058.
Yes, the number, that 200 number that you had was hard cost only, and Rhode has a formula where you include soft cost or contingency. That's all in the stage 2, so you will see the tabulation. You will see that exact number of hard cost, and then you'll see percentages where soft cost was added. Now, it's my understanding, National Grid or a vendor would do that work. That soft cost would probably not be applicable, but it is in Rhode's formula, so it's on this chart, that's all.
And that's all, no other costs. And that
Those
comes
are
out
the-
to,
Yes.
that comes out to 1,347,976.
Correct. There's only 2 items on the application.
So that doesn't address what you said there would be contingency and escalation costs?
No, it does. Those numbers include that.
Okay.
Yes. And soft cost. Soft cost is reimbursable at the same rate as part of that project. Okay. And we currently have the high school locker, shower, toilet rooms anticipated at 45% reimbursement, and the light poles at 40%, for an estimated return of 590,786.
All right, I just want to clarify something, and maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but we said to do all the bathrooms, and if there was money left over to do the
Yeah,
locker.
there's not a
When
different,
did
there's
that
been no decision to go with the locker rooms versus the bathrooms.
So why are we submitting that then? That doesn't make any sense to me, because those locker rooms were only supposed to be done if we got all the bathrooms done and there was extra money.
Leftover money.
Right, I don't understand why that's being put as a submission. I don't think that's correct.
There was at the building committee, there was discussions that the, what is it,
But that is not what this money was given to you guys for.
that the locker room bathrooms were in worse condition or needed the allocated funds more. It
Yeah,
can,
but
it
this
can
$2
go back.
million, but this $2 million was not advocated for that.
Okay,
We gave you permission.
Yeah, the money was allocated for the bathrooms, not for the locker rooms. And
Right.
if we are going to do locker rooms, we need to go back to the council. It's for bathrooms. The submission should only really be for bathrooms in the
Yeah.
middle school and the high school.
We should stick to the plan that was presented and approved.
Correct.
So then what is the cost of those bathrooms? You already spent or you already did the middle school bathrooms, correct? Am I accurate on that?
We've done some bathrooms in
Okay.
both schools.
Okay.
There are many other bathrooms in both
Okay.
schools. There are some bathrooms in the locker rooms which are included in that. So what can I anticipate? I could anticipate through the process of the building committee coming back to the school committee, and then the school committee coming back to you and saying, would it make more sense to proceed in this fashion? And that still would, I believe, be encompassed by the submission to Ride, but that hasn't been completely adjudicated.
No, and I think that this is where this is where I think we got really lost in this process. The
Yep.
casino money was allocated by the town council. It should have nothing to do with the building committee. That's for future.
No, and what I'm just saying is that the building committee may, right, you're right. The money was allocated by the town council. But I guess what I'm suggesting is that it wouldn't be unreasonable to continue this discussion as the building committee is doing its work, which is actually to kind of put in process the construction itself or the renovations themselves.
We need a decision soon here for this.
Yeah,
You got to get it in by the 15th.
correct. Joe Perry.
That's a week away.
Yeah, yes, Jerry. Wouldn't it make more sense to do the bathrooms all together now instead of doing the high school ones and then later on going out to bid to have the other locker rooms done? I think it'd probably be a cost effective to do them all at the same time. That's my personal feeling, I would think, because
Right.
everything's going up. And if you only do part of it now and then later on you want to get prices or bids on doing the locker room, I think it's going to cost more money. I just think it makes more sense to do everything now while you have the guys there to do it, rather than do it partial and then later on do the locker rooms. That's my feeling.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Joe. Diane, I'm just going to try and make sure everybody has a chance to talk. Diane?
Dr. Larkin, it is my recollection that when we voted on this, it was with the understanding that this was going to be for bathrooms. When we voted over the last couple of meetings, well, last Tuesday and then earlier this evening was bathrooms and light poles, and that was it.
That's my understanding as well. Mike Burke?
I think, no, Denise, I didn't know if Denise, so I just want to put forward a motion that's going to work for you, given the constraints of the votes that we took earlier. So, for example, Joe's suggestion is great, but that doesn't match up with the votes that we took earlier. We had a finite set of money that we allocated to you for specific purposes. And it sounds like that, and I could be wrong, that $1,031,000 was not an estimate for the bathrooms as a whole. It was an estimate for that locker room, those locker room areas, which were not part of the allocation. So if you have those numbers tonight, then we can do that tonight. If you don't have those numbers tonight, I think we may have to look at putting it on our agenda for Monday night, which is the 14th.
Mike, I totally agree with Mike. I don't know why you're submitting something that isn't approved for the casino money. And I don't think we're prepared to vote tonight, to tell you the truth. I will tell you, I've already done the agenda for the 14th, and I did not put this on. I mean, I could add it, but that's asking us to make a
So
decision.
the the amount isn't going to change, right? You had allocated that 2 million, some of it's already been.
Yeah, but I want to see it in
allocated.
writing. I want to see what you're submitting in writing. And I want to make sure that it's the bathrooms in the high school. We got no backup here. We don't see what you're submitting in writing, and you're asking us to just vote. We have no backup here. It doesn't say, I want to know what you're submitting and how it goes to RIDE. And we
Yes,
don't
and
have the
that's
backup
fine.
for that whatsoever.
We can give you a copy of that.
Right, so
now-
we wouldn't be
Yes.
able to vote on it this evening without the backup. That's my opinion. Deb?
But the sum
No,
will be, the sum will be the same, so we can.
It doesn't
take that.
matter. It doesn't matter. I want to see it in writing.
I understand. I'm just trying to clarify that the sum would be the same, but that money would be allocated all to bathrooms.
Well, we
I
need to
just-
see that in writing.
Yeah,
Deb?
I
I just
understand
want
that.
to say,
All right, Deb,
I just
go.
want to say, we want to work cohesively. I would hate to see a plan submitted for something that we didn't really approve and that we're not really planning to do, and then we lose that reimbursement from the state because it wasn't submitted correctly as approved. So I think we really need, like Mike said, we need to cross our Ts and dot our Is and make sure that we're all voting for and signing on the same thing.
So I think if you, so,
I think Diane had her hand up.
oh, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I lowered it. I've already had my say. Thank you.
All right. The town council allocated money for various things categorically. Among those were bathroom renovations. There are many renovations that are required.
So
That
Jerry,
would-
I think I have a solution. I'm
Okay.
gonna put you on my February 14th meeting. I'd like
Okay.
back up exactly what you are submitting to RIDE. So like
Okay.
Deb said, we don't want this to go to RIDE and it isn't for what we approved, and then we don't get the backup. The
Yeah,
money.
okay.
So
I get that, and I appreciate that. And what I'm gonna suggest we will be doing on the 14th is that we will be asking you to approve a submission to RIDE that specifies bathroom allocations. I think the locker rooms are a whole other story, and we're gonna need to, that needs to be part of a larger process. And
Right, and-
frankly, that's the, you know, the vote that the school committee took last time. I think if you made a motion tonight and said it is for bathroom renovations, that is what's going to be in the RIDE submission. But we will have the RIDE submission specifically for you on the 14th, and it's going to be for light poles and bathroom renovations.
Yeah,
We-
I'll be
We
really,
specified where those bathrooms would be.
I have to tell you, because this has been a process that I think has been very confusing, and not very forthright, and we don't know. I just want to make sure that we have it in writing exactly what we're approving. And I would not vote tonight, to tell you the truth, until I
Okay.
see that.
I agree. You know, due diligence. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay. I think I can ask for a motion to adjourn the town council meeting.
Second,
So moved.
Motion's been made by Joe, seconded
Denise?
by,
Denise, can I just ask one question?
sure.
So my understanding is that you were going to put this on your agenda for the 14th for the review and for the actual allocation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the town council also needs to send a letter of support in support of the application. So I would ask that at least a draft of that letter be submitted to us before the meeting so that we would all can see it before it's signed, so that we can just sign it that night if it's approved, and we can move on. I don't want to waste another day getting a letter drafted at the last minute. So I think I'm right on the regulations there, that it's not necessarily approval by the town council, but it's a letter of support.
So is that a draft letter that would come from the school superintendent or the RGB Corporation as a draft for the council to entertain, or do we draft our own?
Well, I'd like it to come from the RGB or the superintendent, but be signed by the council president.
Okay.
Now, would that be a letter of intent? Is that the letter of intent or? is
No,
that
it's just a letter of saying that this is the plan that's been submitted. Correct me if I'm wrong, superintendent, or the RGB. This is the plan that's this is the phase 2. And you know, and the council is in support of these projects, whatever they happen to be, or, you know, this submission, basically.
That's fine. Another way to handle it is when you have a vote to submit the stage application to Ride, that gets recorded in your minutes, and we submit those to Ride following the submission, just because of the timing of the meeting.
Oh, okay, so we can submit minutes after the fact. It's not by the 15th, because we won't approve those minutes till the next meeting, so whatever. But I think it's good to do both, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's correct. We've put agendas in before, then followed with the official meeting minutes.
Okay.
I can get you copies of the dates of when the council actually did vote on the gaming monies and specifically what they were to be used for, if that will help you.
I'm sorry to
Okay.
interrupt. That's all I have. Thank you.
No, anything else, Mike? No? Okay, so I have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor, Counselor Janik,
Yes.
Counselor Burke,
Yes.
Counselor Vieira,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you.
Oh,
Good night,
my.
good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
All right, thanks,
Oh,
everybody.
Counselor Edwards. I know
That's
it's-
okay. I was quiet tonight.
Good night, good night.
You forgot me, now it's your turn.
Okay, so, sorry, find my agenda. Okay, next item on our agenda is open forum. Has anybody signed up for open forum?
There was no one signed up for open forum, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
So moved.
I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Fabo,
She's on mute. Elaine?
Elaine, you there?
Bueller?
I
Maybe-
vote yes.
Yeah. Let's hold on.
Motion passes 3-1 abstention. All right, we're on. Do we have students present for Spotlight on Success?
We do.
I'm gonna ask for motion to move up item 8D, Spotlight on Success, Rhode Island Scholastic Art and Writing Awards.
I'll make that motion to move item 8D up.
So moved.
There's, that was a second, Mike?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'll ask for a vote. Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Ms. Farnworth,
Yes.
I vote yes. Mrs. Pavo? I don't know if she's muted. Elaine, you there? All right. Motion passes 3-1 abstention. So we're on item 8D, Spotlight on Success, Rhode Island Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. Mrs. Craven.
Thank you, Dr. Larkin.
I have with us this evening for recognition Jackson Palumbo for his award-winning digital photos. Jackson competed in the Regent at Large program of the 2022 Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, recognizing some of America's most celebrated artists. And Jackson's here with us this evening to tell us what inspired him to take these photographs. Jackson?
Hi, I hope you can hear me.
We can.
We can.
Yeah, these images, I just thought of all the ones that I had, they were the most moving. And I thought that they made the most sense to include in my submission because they tell a story, most of all the pictures I've ever taken, I think. And that's really what you strive to do in photography, is tell a story. So that's why I included these.
And as you can see, Jackson won both gold and silver keys for his submissions, and we definitely want to recognize him this evening. Great job, Jackson. We appreciate all you have done, and you deserve a spotlight this evening for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Jackson. Very nice.
Congratulations. Can I ask a question?
Yes,
yeah.
of course.
Is that first picture anywhere in Tiverton? I don't think the others are.
No, that's in it's in Maine, in Acadia National Park.
Oh, what a beautiful place for photographing. Very good. Congratulations.
Good job. All right, great. Next is item 8A, the core organization.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm going to turn it over to Greg Thompson first as we kick off this presentation with a 5-year grant. I guess 5 is a magic number tonight. So Greg Thompson is...
Not exactly.
Is the he's with Strategic Prevention Partnerships, and he was really monumental in getting this off the ground. And so Greg, why don't you start, and then I'll pick back up and finish up.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Gloria, for that introduction. I am Greg Thompson. I'm the project director for the Drug-Free Community Grant of the Strategic Prevention Partnerships, and that's a partner of Newport County Prevention Coalition. I first want to apologize for my camera being off. I just leaving my daughter's black belt training and putting my other two to bed right now. So I apologize again for the camera being off. But into the program, this program is geared towards increasing peer and parental awareness to pressures that students ages 12 to 17 are facing today. The primary focus of the drug-free community work is to decrease the use and the favorable opinions and attitudes from youth towards marijuana use, underage drinking, and opioid use. A youth focus group has been created in the attempt to unveil the issues that lead up to the risky behaviors and include that of substance use. We are using this method to highlight the why experimentation may take place. If you look at all of the messaging, you look at the different videos and commercials and things along that nature, you see that most of the current messaging used today addresses the now that we know you use mentality, with no real emphasis on the how did you get to this point. Partnering with Gloria and the core organization has proven to be very beneficial in providing a safe and welcoming environment to which youth can openly express and speak their emotions and minds without fear of retribution, retaliation, or even judgment. This effort is a collaboration that has birthed a youth advocacy program appropriately titled the Peer Productions. And this is a production group for the youth. And by the youth. So from here, I will pass it back over to Gloria so she could really highlight the peer production work that's going on.
Thanks, Greg. So not only is this a launch, but it is launching at Tiverton High School with Tiverton students. And instead of looking at the end result of opioids and drug abuse and marijuana, we're taking the approach to have young people create the narrative in a film format. And we're looking at the emotional content. So we created peer productions. And Dave, I don't know if you have that image, if you're able to, I can't share it on my screen, but, oh, yay. Thanks, Dave. So peer productions is producing emotions and empathy in real time. And the founding students, thanks, Dave, are Emma Baker, Ellie Flanagan, Julia Hahn, Emily Mello, Casey Michaels, and Ava Malukas. Also, Emma Baker is turning this project into her senior project. And we've already met. Mrs. Craven is looped in on everything that we're doing. The first film, the theme is isolation and the impact of not being heard. Our screenplay is almost ready to be approved. And then we have shoot dates in April, and we will premiere the film in the end of April. And from that film and snippets of that film, a 60-second spot, a 30-second spot, will go up on the Newport County Prevention Coalition YouTube channel and will be visible to all social media sites. So the goal here is to reach kids where they are. A realistic approach to looking at the emotional content of why kids are turning to self-harm, substance abuse, self-medication. And I know, Emma, you're here. I see you chiming in. It's so far, it's been an incredibly powerful program, and we're on our way to premiering something in this district that it's not being done anywhere in the state of Rhode Island. So what is launching here at Tiverton High School will become the pilot program for other districts to look at film and look at media as a source of peer retention, and really getting to understand and promote a message that is student driven, and the narrative goes right to the heart and soul of what's going on. So I'm really, really proud of where we are. Students will be meeting with a documentary filmmaker. We're gearing up for 4 films throughout the year, and we'll grow this program over the next 5 years. It is free, it is totally funded. Yay, we like free and we like more. So, so the beautiful thing is what is happening with our student group that is, becoming the impetus of this particular film is they will become the role models for others who want to jump in on this process. Emma Baker, while you're here, did you want to add anything to this particular project?
I just want to say I totally agree with everything you're saying. And in the process of sort of writing this and coming up with scenes and working with everyone, it's been really like cathartic and therapeutic, and just such a great experience. It's like one of my favorite creative experiences I've ever had, because it's just like reaffirming that you're not alone, and also like you're putting something out into the world to share with everybody how you're feeling. So it's just been really amazing.
You guys are doing a great job. And just so everyone is aware, we have release forms, we have confidentiality forms. When we choose a location, I will approve the location. It's probably going to be around the high school, but and Sue, you will get an approval of the script before we shoot it, as will Newport County. So I'm really excited about this project. I think it's going to be something that will impact the state, and it will put us on the map as far as young people turning the narrative around about being heard and about being understood. So moving on from that, I'm really happy to announce a new grant that is part of the Rhode Island Foundation, and it's their Division of Arts and Academics. And the grant is from the Rhode Island Foundation through its Arts and Academics Fund, created in 2004 by retired Rhode Island art educator Karel Greenblatt-Gersikoff. The fund supports educational projects that integrate art disciplines into other core academic subjects. And I love this particular one. I titled it Innovation Station, and it's for all of our second graders. So, and you guys get to decide. I reached out to all the principals. They will coordinate with second grade teachers. It's not a lot of funding, but it's enough funding that second grade teachers get to create an innovative station in their classroom geared to their classroom needs. And I think second graders right now need a little bit more love and a little bit more tactile stimulation. So I'm really, really excited. Principals, if you will just circle back around to me, because I will need to know how to report on this grant fund. But basically, I give you guys the money and you guys go to work, which is a good thing. We don't get to say that often, do we? We also will be utilizing the remainder of the RI Charge grant with our spring in-person classes beginning April 26th through June 2nd. We skipped winter because of everything going on, so we will conclude this year with our last spring session. We will also be utilizing some impact funding from the United Way of Greater Fall River by adding a social emotional level into our spring production of Willy Wonka, which opens June 3rd. We will be hiring an arts integration, social and emotional teaching artist throughout the whole 12-week process. So while kids are rehearsing and doing the whole theater thing, they're also getting doses of fine arts and emotional check-ins. We are also going to be relaunching the Arts Literacy Camp. We ran for 14 years until COVID hit and we had to take a break. We're gearing up for 1 week of a full day arts integration and educational component. There's so much more happening. I don't have details yet, but please trust that as soon as I know what's happening, you all will know. I also want to announce a grant. I hope I can report back of this award, but it's a year-long grant that's really close to my heart. It's the integration of dance, creative movement, and music, and it's titled Moving Through Emotions. And it's for all kids in Newport County, K through 12. And we're really looking at how dance and movement and music can help rewire a lot of the prefrontal cortex, which has been happening with the uptick in stress, and for all kids. So by incorporating a dance program and movement, we're getting kids to move and we're getting kids to understand how brain, body, and spirit move together. We will also be introducing body positive language because we've seen an uptick in younger adolescents, especially females, particularly concerned with how their bodies look. And we want to address that through physical motion. We will also be implementing a layer of the value of nutrition and fueling the body and brain for optimum learning and moving or creating. So we'll be working with a licensed dietitian and nutritionist so young people understand how they need to fuel their brains and bodies to learn. I have to take off my core hat right now and put on my Tiverton High School drama advisor hat.
Ms. Crist, sorry to interrupt. I need to turn the chair of the meeting over to Ms. Farnworth. I'm going to be joining by phone on the 2370 number you see in the bottom.
Okay.
So sorry, So I'm going to disappear, but I will be with you in spirit or via telecommunication. So thank you.
Bye. So our spring show is titled The Unshow. With COVID restrictions and everything still going on, we've decided to create our own show and have the accessibility to move it outside if we want to. And there'll be more information on that coming soon, but the dates are the same. I submitted brand new building use forms with updated information. And finally, I just want to recognize the Uma family. We have some brand new signed theater posters in the theater hanging up on the walls to add to our collection. The Wiz, No, No, Nanette, and Orpheus Descending were all donated by the Umahara family in memory of their Uncle Bernie, who was a big theater buff, and he passed away about a year ago. And so they donated them to the theater. Are there any questions about these grants, how the grants will be utilized? How can I answer any questions for anyone?
If anyone would like to be recognized, please raise your hand.
Okay. Gregory, thanks so much for joining us. And thank you all for the time. And I look forward to working with everyone as we put all this in motion.
Gloria, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, we have a couple more items on our agenda, starting with high school graduation requirements and program of studies. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Craven.
Thank you, Diane. Dave Carnavale, if you could pull up that slide presentation, that'd be appreciated. So you received in your packet a summary of the graduation requirements that are being proposed by the changes to the graduation requirements that are being proposed by the Department of Education, secondary and elementary education. Dave, you can turn to the next slide, please. So as you can see, the current Rhode Island secondary diploma requirements that are highlighted in gray on this screen show that there hasn't been any proposals that would change the requirements for English. Math, there is a recommended change that all students would be required to take Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 when they enter high school. Physical and natural sciences, there weren't any changes. There was a recommendation that 2 lab sciences be included, but we already do that at Tiverton High School. History and social sciences, there were not any changes. World language is a change. It is recommended that all students take 2 years of the same world language in order to graduate high school. 1 additional college prep class. And then additional units. Right now, the additional units include world language, the arts, technology, PE, and health, but it's going to be required that all students take computer science as well. Next slide, please. So what does that mean for Tiverton High School? In speaking with Steve Orabona from the Rhode Island Department of Education, he recommended that we proceed with computer science for 2026. 2027, we would then have students entering the high school sign up for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, as well as the recommendation to take 2 of the same world languages. They are getting a lot of pushback from the Rhode Island Principals Association on the world language requirement, because when they rolled out the mandate or the proposed mandate, budgets were already submitted. And we are fortunate that we have the world language faculty in order to fulfill this requirement, but many high schools across Rhode Island did not. So they're holding off on the mandates for math and world language until 2027. So as you can see from this slide, the left hand, or my left hand, shows you the current requirements and the change to just include computer science. And the right-hand side, my right-hand side of the screen will show you the minimum requirements in Rhode Island for a high school diploma as outlined here. Next slide, Dave, please. The additional changes that we are proposing for class of 2023 and forward is relating to the senior project requirement. Right now, all students at Tiverton High School are required to complete a senior project. And looking at high schools across Rhode Island, that has gone more to a flexible model in that students who are in AP classes or CTE programs can complete a capstone project or a graduation portfolio or a student exhibition instead of just a senior project. So that language that you see in red at the bottom of the screen is language I'd like to add to our program of studies that allows students to fall into one of those categories, in that not all students will have to just do a senior project. Next slide, please. Additional recommendations come from the faculty at Tiverton High School, our community service advisor. I know in the past, Mr. Ashley came before you and recommended that the hours of community service be lowered due to COVID and the restrictions on students. However, we believe that the 75 hours is a burden for students, so we are requesting that that be reduced to 30 hours of community service. Again, I did look at other high schools in Rhode Island. 75 is a pretty high number. Most are in the range of 25 to 35. And some don't have community service at all. I believe we should continue to have community service as a graduation requirement. Just 75 hours is a burden for a lot of students, especially during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So I have joining us this evening, Mr. Gaychuk and Mr. McGuire. They have helped me to come up with some new pathway proposals for 22-23. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gaychuk if he's on the line right now. Is he, Dave?
I'm here.
All right. So Mr. Gaychuk, if you'd like to talk about the pathway for 22-23.
The pathway we like to introduce through the History Social Studies Department is law, public safety pathway. In this, we've kind of developed some new courses related to law, like the principles of law and public safety. And then, continue with Mrs. Anselmo's law class, and then to kind of throw in a little more criminal justice into that as well. We've talked to some of the police officers here in town. In the past, they've had a Youth Explorer program, which is something we want to reintroduce again. And then with the fire department as well, bringing in something like a CPR first aid certification. Initially, we were hoping that we can carry this on to like a corrections officer, park ranger, or DEM, several other areas as well. But in the, early on here, we're going to focus on with the police department and fire departments. And then hopefully bring this into articulation with New England Tech.
So I have been in touch with the New England Institute of Technology. They are willing to sign an articulation agreement with us so students can get 4 credits for the criminal justice class. The curriculum we would give to the students would obviously mimic the curriculum they give to the students at the New England Institute of Technology for that criminal justice class. We did receive that curriculum, and they are ready to sign that articulation agreement with us for that criminal justice class that's in 12th grade Orford.
Mrs. Craven, when you're finished with this particular pathway, I'm going to ask you to stop and field any questions from the committee.
Absolutely.
Are we at that point?
I think we're at that point.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to throw it out there. Do any members of the committee, and I'm sorry, oh, wait a minute. I moved my Zoom over to my second screen, so now I can try to see people. Do any members of the committee have any questions?
No question here, but I love seeing more.
I have a question. I'm sorry. My question is, will these new pathways appear in the handbook for this year when the students begin to choose their classes for next year during the course selection process?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mike, I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
Yes, if I could, I would love to. I just wanted to comment more than ask any question that it's good to see these pathways. You know, my son graduated in 2011 from Tiverton, became a mechanic. He did the VOTEC program at Rogers, and at 28 years old last year, he joined the military, joined the Navy. And, you know, he spun his wheels for 10 years, but it wasn't for naught. If he didn't have the VOTEC program, he wouldn't have got the skills to get into the workforce. So I love seeing some of the stuff, especially the criminal justice and someday for correctional officers. It's great. I mean, not every kid wants to go to college, or so this is great. I love to see it. So thanks for putting this together. Andy, nice job.
Mike, there is a pathway for military as well in this. I just haven't had the opportunity to speak to any of the local, recruiters or anything, to make a decision exactly which way we go with that. But there is definitely something for the military in this as well.
That would have been great 10 years ago. Would have saved me a lot of money, Andy.
You know what?
When
we were discussing this and putting this forward, we found that in Andy, did a lot of work and a lot of research on that. There are a lot of avenues students can take when they enter this pathway. So moving forward, we will be branching off in a lot of directions for different career paths, and we're excited about that at our high school.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Mr. Craven, I did have one question. So, these pathways, I'm assuming the entirety of them obviously only apply to the upcoming ninth graders, but if a junior or senior or sophomore wanted to take one of these classes, for example, if a sophomore wanted to take government in the role of the citizen in obviously sophomore year, could they, and sort of obviously not complete the whole pathway, but take specific classes from it?
They certainly can, but the grade 9 requirement is the civics requirement. So all students entering high school have to take that class regardless.
Well, yes, perhaps it wasn't the best example, but
that's okay. That's okay. But yes, to answer your question, students can certainly take any of these classes, assuming they fit into their schedule. They do have opportunities to select electives in their schedule.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Craven, a couple questions. What is the New England Tech program that these 4 credits would apply to? I'm not familiar with what their offerings are in this regard.
It is public safety.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, are any of these classes net new to the program of studies?
The only one that's new to the program of studies would be the criminal justice one.
Okay, and I guess I would like to express at least my concern over being able to fund new classes.
We're not funding new classes. We're able to put these classes into our program of studies, because what we did was there was a class that Mr. Gachuk taught. Human geography. So we eliminated that class from our program of study so we can put this class in.
Perfect. That was really the crux of the net new question.
No problem.
And I do want to thank you, Mr. Gachuk, for putting together an awesome presentation. Does anyone from the Zoom have any questions? And Mr. Carnevale, anyone from the public?
There are no questions at this time, Mrs. Farmer.
Okay, Mrs. Craven, I'll please go forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gaychuk. I really
Welcome.
appreciate you coming this evening. So we're also excited to show you this evening a new pathway that's going to go through our health and PE department for a CNA certification for students entering this CTE program at Tiverton High School. So as you can see here, the courses are outlined, but I have Mr. McGuire with us this evening. He's going to go through the specifics with you.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Yeah, we did it was a combined effort, but between myself, the guidance counselors, and Mrs. Craven. We did a little bit of research, and we thought we may be able to help a group of students who may be interested in going to college into the health field. So we took what we already had, and we're in the process of finalizing the last part. So if you look at the PowerPoint, you can see that course 1 would be biology, either prep biology, honors biology, or AP biology. Course 2 would be a combination of anatomy and physiology. And then course 3 would be what we're calling right now CNA 1 and CNA 2, which would be a combination health science. And it would be 3 parts. There'd be a classroom lecture. There would be practice learning, and we're going to set up a classroom in the school for practice learning. And the third part would be a clinical, where we're hoping that they'll be able to get out into area nursing homes and do clinical work to accumulate hours. So again, it's in the beginning stages, but we're really excited about having it. And we just wanted to tell you a little bit about it.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Our partner in this attempt to open up a new pathway is Allied Health, and they have agreed to work with us, and they would be the individuals who come into the school, work with our teachers on the CNA 1, CNA 2 training portion of this requirement. And then they also would be the individuals who place students in the work-based learning opportunities.
Thank you, Mrs. Craven. I'll open it up to members of the committee. Are there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I'm very happy to see the CNA 1 and CNA 2 added to our CTE program. I'm hoping that this will possibly keep some students who may go over to another district that offers this kind of a program and keep them here back home at Tiverton High School. I know specifically of one case of a student traveling over to Portsmouth for something we don't offer in CTE, and that makes me feel very sad. So this is going to be a great program. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. McGuire.
You bet.
Mr. Dakotas, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Craven, so these pathways are not yet CTE ready, right? Would that be correct in saying?
That's correct. The application for CTE accreditation just came out from the Department of Education. And so we will be applying. You know, they are very specific with the requirements, and we feel we meet these requirements with what we're currently offering to students. And so that application will be submitted. It's due March 2nd so that we can get it a full CTE program. From here, from this pathway, we can also look at EMT, Emergency Medical Technician, which requires almost identical course 1 and course 2 sequences. And then it would just be course 3 that we would add the EMT. So we really were strategic in what we were starting to offer so we could explore different avenues.
Well, and I will echo Mrs. Pavo's accolades on this. Offering something in the healthcare field has been something I've been hoping to see really since I came on the committee. I've really felt that was an opportunity we were missing out. We border a city that has 2 hospitals and any number of healthcare facilities. Not to mention, you know, our reach to Providence and Boston for those students that really want to take it, you know, a step further. So I can't say enough at how happy I am to see this as well. And we'll have to work on, you know, how to maintain the funding for these programs. Does anyone, do any of our student reps have any questions?
Two things. One, a comment, and the second, a question. So first, I really appreciate, and I think I speak for all the students when I say this is great that you're offering more opportunities. And hopefully, if these do get accredited, then we can sort of help shorten that gap between high school, that jump between high school and college, and sort of reduce that whiplash that I know a lot of students sort of get. And my question was, and I asked you this yesterday, Ms. Craven, these are a lot of programs that you're introducing. How exactly do you plan on proposing them to the students and letting them know?
Yeah, so, you know, the first step is to get approval this evening to add these into our program of studies. And we spent a lot of work rewriting the program of studies to include these pathways. And then course selections begin in March, late February, March. So we're going to have an assembly. So the students are aware of the changes to the program of studies. We want them to know of the new offerings so that they can make choices based on the decisions that are made this evening. The 8th graders are coming over to Tiverton High School on February 14th, where we're going to give them an overview of the changes to our program of studies. And we're also going to have our CTE teachers available on that day to give them a preview of what we have and what we offer at our school. And we do have an open house planned for February 15th as well, for any student, not just Tiverton High School students.
That sounds very good. And again, thank you for coming up with these plans.
You're welcome.
Ms. Baker, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to echo everyone else's appreciation for this. I'm graduating next year, so unfortunately I'm not gonna be able to experience any of this, but it does make me feel really good that like the school I'm leaving behind is gonna offer so many amazing opportunities to its students. And literally everything I've heard so far has been amazing. So thank you. I'm sure all of the students are gonna appreciate this so much. So thanks.
You're welcome. You deserve it.
Absolutely. Anyone else on the Zoom have comments they'd like to make? Okay, and Mr. Carnevale, anyone from the public?
There are no questions from the public. Ms. Farmer. Thank you.
I just also want to express my gratitude to Mr. McGuire for a great presentation. Fantastic work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mrs. Craven, you want to continue?
I do. So the next step is I'm looking for approval from the committee for this program of studies and the changes that have been proposed this evening.
So could I get a motion to approve the program of studies for discussion purposes?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. I will kick off the discussion. I'm obviously state mandate, state law will dictate what some of these items will end up being. Excuse me. The one concern I have is dropping those community service hours down to 30 hours. You know, I hear you that in the case of many students that they do have difficulty performing those hours. But I also remember that they are eligible to start performing their hours while they're students at the middle school. And many of them indeed go well over the 75. And I'm almost fearful at going along with such a drastic reduction that we're really letting down on a standard that we as a community have been so proud of. I don't know what the other members of the committee might think about that.
I don't know if it's my place to comment, but
Mr. Farley, can you wait a moment until I have the committee members weigh in? Thank you.
of course.
Mike, Elaine?
Yeah, I saw that when I looked at when the backup came over, and I thought that I don't know. I remember my son doing it, and didn't seem like a problem. I understand that COVID is something that's changed the way we live, and no doubt. I don't know. My personal opinion is I don't think enough community service is ever enough, but I get why. So I'd like to say that I'm just eager to listen, and that's my opinion.
Okay, Elaine, do you have anything you want to add?
My concern about reducing the number of hours post-COVID, if we ever get to post-COVID, is that the program will be watered down. And for so many years, so many students before the students where we have now, student population, got through 75 hours of community service. It was hard. It was difficult for many students. They can't speak in front of an audience or in front of people, but they did it. If we've reduced it now to 30 because of COVID, it looks like we're going to keep it where we've had it now for the past couple of years. But is the program going to be watered down? How much is it going to be worth? That's my concern. If you have a program, it should be the best it could be, not just to get by and say we have community service 30 hours. And I understand 75 hours is a lot. It's a lot of time. But if you start at the middle school and you pace yourself, you do get through it. That's all I have.
Thank you. And Dr. Larkin, I see your phone line is still open. Are you still with us? And do you want to offer an opinion on this or any parts of the program of studies? Okay, I don't hear anything. And I will also offer to you, Mrs. Craven, that the change in the approach for graduating seniors to be more flexible.
Hi, Diane. I am with you. I had to unmute
All right, let me
myself.
just finish my one sentence. Thanks, Jerry. That the change to be more flexible depending on where the students are, i.e. capstone or what have you. I'm totally okay with that. I think in a lot of cases, the senior projects themselves are in some ways also morphing to a point where change might be good. So Dr. Larkin, I turn it over to you.
So I guess I have similar feelings to Elaine's, that 35 seems to be a fairly minimal number. And I could see doing it for another year, maybe, while we're still kind of partially shut down, I guess, or whatever we are now. And there's a lot of value in what they learn from that. It's not because we want them to do something. It's because I think they actually experience a lot of things that they would not have otherwise kind of encountered or intersected with in their daily life. So and I guess my question about it, maybe I should have brought this up earlier, is there a real sentiment among the students prior to COVID that they were having that much difficulty meeting this requirement?
So I'm gonna have Mr. McGuire answer that question, Dr. Larkin. So Mr. McGuire is our community service advisor, and I got to be honest with you, we had gone back and forth on this, and even a discussion with Dr. Sanchioni. You know, we don't want to drop the rigor of anything. That's not the intent at all. But I think if we hear from Mr. McGuire, and I am okay with just changing the program of studies to indicate what we have already done or what Mr. Ashley did, and then revisiting it after COVID, I'm certainly fine with that. But Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give you this is just my opinion, and I certainly respect what everyone's comments were tonight, and to a certain degree, everybody is correct. I will just tell you from what I experience on a day-to-day basis. Certain groups of kids have no problem doing it, and then I'm fielding a lot of phone calls from parents. And I'm not kids not willing to do it, but lack of opportunities because of COVID, lack of accessibility, not being able to get there. And you could call it an excuse if you wanted to. However, I do think the COVID excuse is real. Going back when I started doing this 6 years ago, there were a lot more opportunities. Pardon Day, Country Day at Pardon Gray, and a lot of things going on in town that are not going on right now, which I think have limited some of the students. So with that being said, again, I didn't, if you would have asked me this question 3 years ago about the 75 hours, I would have said, it's not a problem. We've never had somebody not do it. However, we're at the point now where I'm a little bit concerned that there are some kids, a higher number than in past years, if that makes sense, that are gonna struggle down the stretch. And so that's why, again, the number doesn't necessarily have to be 30, but I expressed my concerns to Mrs. Craven because I thought I don't want to see any student put in a situation where it's 2 days before graduation and they're struggling, and it's because of resources, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate that. That's definitely great insight. Dr. Larkin, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, I guess I understand the current issues, and I'm fine holding it for, for it being either 35 or waiving the requirement altogether, at least until times are more normal, whatever that is. I just don't want to lose sight of of going back to making it more rigorous. I understand not the lack of opportunities and therefore not making the requirements as substantial, but I'd hate to do that and then it never goes back.
I agree.
So if we could hear from our student. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
I was just going to say, so I don't know if you put a sunset on it, say for and that it needs to come back, we need a new recommendation from the principal, or in 12 months or 24 months, but what she or he wants to implement or feel is most appropriate from an educational point of view, because that's really what it's about, is the education they're getting out of it.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Larkin. I do want to give the student representatives an opportunity to weigh in. I'll start with Ms. Baker.
So I just want to say that I totally understand everyone's concerns about 30 hours being too few and about it decreasing the rigor that students experience. But I do want to say that I completely agree with Mr. McGuire's points about there being a lack of opportunity. And I noticed this even before COVID, that at least there was a lack of presented opportunity to the students, or a lack of communication about community service opportunities that they were given. And I think it's only gotten worse with COVID. So I think as long as we increase the availability of opportunities to students, then 75 hours is fine. But I would personally much rather there be an increased quality of those hours than an increased quantity, if that makes sense. So if students really dedicate their time to one cause, one volunteer cause that they're really passionate about for 30 hours, I see that as much more valuable than 75 hours here and there, just doing it because they have to. So that's my take on that.
Very good, very good. Mr. Farley, not last but certainly not least.
Thank you. I perhaps Mr. McGuire can answer this. Besides the points brought up by Ms. Baker, and again, obviously I see your concerns about not having enough, reducing that time to 30 hours and it not going back up. But I think for some students, it's not necessarily getting those hours, but recording them down. I myself have had trouble just recalling exactly how many hours I've done of community service. I know that applies to a lot of students. And, besides the obvious lack of opportunities with COVID and even sometime before that, when you do get those hours, you have to go to the charity or whomever's running this event, and you have to get the signature and everything. And getting quite a few of those signatories and those forms can be burdensome to students.
Okay, thank you. Do we have comments from anyone else on the Zoom call? And do we have any public comments?
There are no current comments at this time.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'm not hearing anyone thus far proposing any amendments to that motion. Is that still the case? Okay, hearing no amendments, I will then take a roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Thank you all very much for a great discussion, and we look forward to hearing it again next spring.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So on our agenda, I will apologize that I actually missed an item. I was so excited about the program of studies that I missed item 8B on the agenda. Again, my apologies. So we'll take it to the Ride 5-year capital plan funding. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a agenda item coming back to you for a second time. This concerns the continuation of developing the 5-year capital plan. You had asked RGB to come back and provide you detailed information about exactly what they were doing, what their role and responsibility is in this plan. So in fact, they did that for you last time. We've expressed to you that we had a $100,000 grant provided to us by Rhode to seed this initially. We've used that grant over the last 2 years in the development of the plan. And at this time, we need your approval to use the fund balance to continue to meet our obligation, our financial obligations to complete the 5-year plan.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchioni, and it was in everyone's packet. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of $200,000 for fiscal year 22 and $277,100 for fiscal year 23 to RGB from the fund balance?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? I will second that motion. Do we have any discussion from the members of the committee?
Diane, could you tell me what the fund balance is that right now? The amount?
I'll ask Ms. Roderick to give us that number if she's got it handy.
It's in round numbers, it's $1,019,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do other members of the committee have any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Motion passes. Okay, we're getting there. 8E, new business, building committee, designation of status, appointment of membership, additional discussion. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In your packet, I've provided you a list of the members of the building committee. Again, seeking your approval to appoint them tonight. And then per earlier discussion, I believe you want to reconstitute the building committee as a subcommittee of the school committee with the superintendent serving as its chair. So with that background information, I believe you'll need to take a vote on that.
So Dr. Sanchioni, what I would recommend is that we take two separate votes. One to address the status of the building committee and the appointment of you as the chair. And then secondly, to appoint the members of the building committee.
All right, Mrs. Farnworth, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Dr. Larkin.
Make a motion that the building committee report be a subcommittee of the school committee and report to the school committee, and that the chair be Dr. Sanchioni or the superintendent.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this motion? I think we've kind of already heard quite a bit on the topic. If I don't hear any discussion from the members of the committee, I'm just going to send this over to a vote. Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So for the second part of the second vote, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the following members to the building committee, and that is going to include 2 members of the town council to be determined by the town council. So that the members of that committee, I will make this motion, will be Dr. Sanchioni, Ms. Roderick, our Director of Finance, Mr. Mendes, our Director of Facilities, Ms. Delcourt, our Director of Communications, Dr. Larkin, the School Committee Chair, myself, the School Committee Vice Chair, Mrs. Craven, the Principal of the high school, Mr. Zatoli, Principal of the middle school, Ms. Priestner, a teacher in our schools, at Pecasset School, last I knew, Ms. Zimick, a parent and certified architect, Mr. Andrade, a parent and CPA, Ms. Pena Vest, a parent and chair of our middle school PTO, Ms. Levesque, a town committee member, Mr. Perry, Mr. David Perry, a budget committee member, and Mr. Michael Janik, a budget committee member. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And I will just back up to once again reiterate, we will have the appointment of 2 members of the town council when they make the selection of the people that will be participating as well. And just so we're all clear on that. Do I have any comments from any members of the committee? Do I have comments from any other members on Zoom? Okay, do I have any comments from members of the public?
There are no comments at this time.
Thank you. I will then take a roll call vote. Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Thank you very much. Motion passes 4-0. Item 8F on the agenda, I'm going to ask you, Dr. Sanchioni, to Council 94 contract. Is that something we want to take up now or after our executive session?
After your executive session, would be more appropriate.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we move item 8F to take place after the executive session. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Make the motion.
Thank you, Paul. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
And Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Thank you very much. Okay. Next, we have old business FY23 budget state aid. Dr. Sanchioni?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd ask you to put put that item on hold to a future agenda item. We had invited our representatives to be with us this evening. I know Mr. Felag was here earlier in the evening, but had to leave because of prior commitments. They were asked to come talk to us about state aid. So I think we should try to re-invite them to a future meeting.
And I would ask that when we do, we put them first up on the agenda. I know tonight was a real busy agenda. Okay, so I will make a motion to table 9A. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Dr. Larkin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So for announcements and scheduled meetings, we have our next regularly scheduled school committee meeting for March 8th, where we currently have the school calendar for 22-23 to be taken up. We also have another meeting March 22nd. I would like a motion to move into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42-46-582, legal advice for the Council 94 contract. Do I have a motion?
I'll make
I'll
that
make them,
motion.
and I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo, Mrs. Pavo, Mrs. Pavo, do you want to vote?
Yes.
Dr. Larkin?
Yes.
And I am a yes. We are in executive session. Thank you very much.
Dave, you gonna make me the lead? Clear the room?
Yes, just give me 1 sec.
Awesome. Nice job. Thank you.
Bye, Dave.
Take care. 1 second. I just got to remove one more person, Dr. Sanchioni.